I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody. Someday, come on, put those hands together. We shall, we shall, let it ring back. Oh, someday, come on, well, deep, I still believe it. Oh, we shall overcome. We shall, we shall, we shall. Someday, deep in my heart, oh, I believe that we shall. Oh, someday.
Tuned in to another live broadcast of the Rainbow Push Coalition. We're live here in Chicago in Dr. King's workshop, 50th and Drexel. You still have time to get here. Call somebody, tweet somebody, text somebody, and let them know that the push is on.
Oh, someday.
We are live all over the world. Call us right now, 773-256-2775, 773-256-2775. We are live on the Impact Network. We are live right now on AM 1690 and iHeartRadio. And we are streaming live right now on our website at rainbowpush.org. We are grateful to each of you who watch us, who tune in each and every week, wherever you are, in your homes, your automobiles, your places of business. Wherever you're kind enough to tune in, we thank God for you. To our international audience, we especially want to welcome you. Those of you who are watching us right now in Spain, in Switzerland, in Nigeria, in Morocco, and France, we thank God for you. And those who are watching us here in the United States, especially our satellite cities of New York, Washington, D.C., Detroit, Atlanta, and Silicon Valley, we thank God for you. Come on, big hand for all of our viewers who are watching us right now all over the world. Listen, we want to dedicate this broadcast to two legendary actors and comedians. Mr. Jerry Lewis, we're dedicating this broadcast to his family, an actor, author, and activist, our very own Dick Gregory, who made this transition last week. We remember him for his fearless and tireless efforts in the civil rights movement. He was a friend of our founder and his family and a friend of this organization, and we miss him dearly. We are also praying for those today who are affected, who are in the path of Hurricane Harvey. We're lifting them up in prayer. We're praying for our own bishop, Bishop Larry Darnell Trotter of the Sweet Holy Spirit Church. We're praying for his recovery. And we're also praying for all of the victims of violence here in Chicago and abroad. Listen, we have a dynamic choir that is with us, a dynamic music aggregation. And we want to make room for them on this broadcast. You may be familiar with their music, but if you're not, you're going to be familiar with it today. Help me give them a great Rainbow Push welcome, the LXW Choir, as they come in their own way.
God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Welcome to the Rainbow Push broadcast. We thank y'all for having us here today. We're not gonna hold you long. We just gonna sing a little song that says God keeps on blessing. Everybody know that God is still blessing you. In the midst of everything going on, make noise back to me. You can talk to me. Come on, let's hit it. 1, 2, 3, let's get it. Hey. Come on, put your hands together with us. And it's all right to stand up if you want to. I know we're live TV, we gotta look sedity, but we can stand up. Come on, put your hands together. Shout out to Sweden out there. Come on, he keeps on blessing me. He keeps on blessing me.
He keeps on blessing me.
Say over. He keeps on blessing me. Say.
He keeps on blessing me.
Say over.
He's blessing me.
Here we go. Come on, say it like this. Blessed shall I be in the city. Blessed.
Blessed shall I be in the city.
Hey, blessed shall I be in the field.
Blessed shall I be in the field. When you go, when they see you, they will
All
know.
nations will call you blessed.
They will know.
Now everybody right here, everybody clap your hands. Clap your hands. Hey, hey, come on right there. Hey, come on, tennis, let's do it like this. He keeps on blessing me. Say, keeps on blessing me. Say, so keep on together. Come on.
He keeps on blessing me. He keeps on blessing me.
Keeps on blessing me.
Keeps on blessing
Come on,
me.
say, keep on blessing.
He keeps on blessing me.
Yeah.
He keeps on blessing me.
Keep on blessing me.
Keeps on blessing
Say, keep on blessing me. He keeps on blessing me. Is anybody else blessed out there today? Hey, say keep on. Hey, keep on blessing. Come on, come on, Chicago, come on. All over the world, keep on blessing me. Hey, the Lord keeps blessing me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's go up again. Say, keep on blessing. Keep on blessing. Keep on blessing me. Hey, so keep on. Tell somebody he keeps on. Tell him, keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Hey, say, keep on blessing. Take me down to F real quick. We only got a minute. Everybody put your hands. Come on, we only got a minute real quick. Come on, we only got a little time. I need you to clap your hands. Maybe y'all know it like this. Maybe you know it like this. You say late at the midnight hour, it's gonna work. I need y'all to sing it back with us now. Somebody say late. God's gonna turn it. It's gonna work. Come on, let's do that one more time. Hey, say late. God's gonna turn it. It's gonna work. I dare you to tell the person next to you. Tell them, say late. God will turn it. Hey, say and around 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 and around, yeah, and around and around and around. He will for you and around. He comes through and around and around and around. Go, he keeps on blessing me. He keeps. God bless you, Chicago.
Come on, make some noise one more time for the LXW Choir. We also have our friends from Sweden visiting us today, our Swedish choirs here. Make some noise. They're all the way from Sweden. And friends from the Chicago Center Group visiting with us. They're representing the states of Wisconsin, Iowa, Oregon, and of course, Illinois. Give them a great hand clap of welcome back to Rainbow Push. Listen, on this coming Monday, the nation will pause to commemorate the 54th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, which happened August 28, 1963, led by Dr. King and so many other great activists. To commemorate that, Reverend Jackson, Reverend Sharpton, along with other ministers and faith leaders from across the country, will travel again this year to Washington, D.C. to commemorate that march and to really speak to the movement of our times today, a spirit of resistance in this age of Trump. We're going to march from the King Monument on Monday all the way to the Department of Justice, where Jeff Sessions sits down and he administers policies that are taking us back. But we're going to go to Washington and say we're not going back. We've come too far and we can't turn around now. So if you cannot join us in D.C. on Monday, if you're here in the Chicagoland area, our own Pastor Paul Jakes will be leading a group on the west side along with Attorney Thomas Todd and Attorney Lou Myers. On Sunday, tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. at the New Tabernacle of Faith Baptist Church, 531 North on Kedzie Avenue. They will be there on tomorrow afternoon, so join them if you cannot make it to D.C. on Monday. Listen, Illinois has become one of the newest states to have passed the Illinois Automatic Voter Registration Act. That act will be signed into law on this coming week, and we will celebrate that at Rainbow Push right here at our headquarters on this coming Tuesday. And to tell us more about what the impact of this act will mean on the state of Illinois and the impact it will have across the country, we have our friend and brother Rod Joy here. He's the executive director of the Illinois Voters for Change. Help me welcome Rod Joy as he comes in his own way.
Human creativity is by far the most powerful force on the planet. And it's an honor to be here this morning with so many talented artists and musicians who promote and exercise that power. So thank you to the choir, and thank you to all of the talented artists. My name is Rod Joy. I serve as Executive Director of Change Illinois, a statewide public policy and political reform coalition. I'm also proud to serve as co-chair of Just Democracy, which is a state voting rights collaborative. We serve and represent a diverse network of leaders and organizations that are committed to improving our systems of democracy and justice. I had an opportunity in early June to be here to talk at length about automatic voter registration, or what's called AVR. At that time, AVR had just unanimously passed the Illinois General Assembly. In this moment where there's so much hyper-partisanship and political gridlock, the fact that no one voted against this reform is quite a testament. Also, at a moment where if you look nationally, there's a wave of efforts in our neighboring states and in states across the country to make it more difficult for people to cast a ballot. States are erecting obstacles that make it more difficult for people to exercise their views and their voices. The wait is finally over. On Monday, Governor Rauner will sign automatic voter registration into law. We're going to celebrate here on Tuesday, but just so you know a little bit about Monday, one of the things that I'm excited about, while it took a long time to get this bill signed, is that this bill signing ceremony will take place at the Harold Washington Cultural Center on 47th and King Drive. And Harold Washington had a lifelong commitment to expanding voting rights, curbing political gerrymandering, and promoting informed civic engagement. So I look forward to reinforcing the legacy of Mayor Harold Washington at Monday's bill signing. Here's why this is important for Illinois. First and foremost, Illinois will become the first state in the Midwest to adopt automatic voter registration. All right. Automatic voter registration fundamentally changed our voting system from an opt-in to an opt-out approach. So moving forward at the DMV and a number of state agencies, anytime an eligible voter does business with the state, they're automatically registered to vote unless they opt not to. and that's a really big deal. This is a big deal for our state. It's a giant step forward for Democratic participation in Illinois. We anticipate that AVR could add 1.13 million voters to the voter rolls. It's an effort that will save the state both time and money, and we're really excited to move this initiative forward. I also just want to say a few words of thanks to Rainbow Push, Betty Agnes, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Tragic circumstances prevented me from attending the national conference. But no organization has pushed harder for voting rights than the Rainbow Push Coalition, and I do want to express our deep gratitude for their leadership. Illinois is poised to play a much stronger role when it comes to voting rights and democracy reform. And because of leaders like Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition, we've seen a voter registration renaissance in Illinois over the last few years. That includes online voter registration, same-day registration, the extension of the early voting period, and we need to keep that momentum up. So on Monday, while we'll be closely watching and celebrating the bill signing of AVR, we'll also have our eye on the future. We all know that policy is only as good as implementation. So our first focus is making sure that AVR is fully implemented in Illinois. We have until July of 2018 until the DMV has to fully integrate, and then we have until July of 2019 until other state agencies need to fully adopt the system. In partnership with Rainbow Push, we look forward to educating policymakers and the public about AVR, what it is, why it matters, and best practices for full implementation. The other goal that we have is we want to register 1 million more voters. In Illinois alone, there are over 1 million people who are eligible to vote, but yet not quite registered. And we want to get out there and make sure that we not only get people registered, but we get them out to the polls and we get them more involved in public life. And finally, we want to make sure that we take this reform across the country. We're pleased today to be joined by leaders from our neighboring states and also from Oregon. Oregon was a leader in this effort. We want to take AVR to Ohio and Michigan and Indiana, and we look forward to doing that with Rainbow Push. So we hope you can join us on Monday. We hope you can join us on Tuesday, and we look forward to keeping you posted about voting rights issues in Illinois. Thank you very much.
Come on, give it up one more time for Rod Joy, Executive Director of Change Illinois. You can follow Reverend Jackson on Twitter right now at Rev J Jackson. You can like him on Facebook, his official Facebook page, Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. Tomorrow morning, make sure you start your week off right by listening to Keep Hope Alive Radio. Keep Hope Alive Radio, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, right here, AM 1690, WVON and iHeartRadio. And you can go to keephopealiveradio.com for more information. Listen, we're going to welcome now our Executive Director of Push Excel, Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, as she comes with our education and membership update.
Good morning, Rainbow Push, Push Excel family. We're excited about our preparations to go back to school. We have Bishop Jerry Jones here with us today. He's representing the apostolic churches, Pentecostal churches, at least in this area. And we hope the Pentecostal churches around the world will be adopting our back to school pledges, our parent pledge, our student pledges, and will become a part of our 1,000 Churches Connected. You'll be hearing from Bishop Jones in this broadcast on next week, explaining why it's important to connect to the 1,000 churches, why we want every pastor that's watching, every faith leader that's watching. So much turmoil. You'll hear more about it when Jonathan speaks. You'll hear more about the issues and challenges when our educators speak. But what we want you to know, we're not as divided as we are disconnected. And so we're going to connect 1,000 faith leaders. What does that mean? You'll get an e-blast every week giving you an analysis of some of the issues, and so that you don't have to do the research. We're going to do the research for you, send it to you, package it for you, and then give you some recommended actions. Together we are strong. And when we look at what the White House is doing, what the Justice Department is trying to do, we must stand together and fight back. We need you to call us right now if you're a faith leader, or if you are a trustee at a church or a synagogue or a mosque. If you are one of the deacons or one of the volunteers, call us right now and sign up your congregation so that we can get connected to you and you can connect to our information. 773-256-2775, or you can go to rainbowpush.org and get connected. If you want to invite us to come and speak to your denominational group or your interfaith alliance, we're prepared to come where you are and give you the information and sign up your members. We met with Bishop Jerry Jones this week, and there were about 40 faith leaders there that are committed to be a part of the 1,000 faith leaders connected to Rainbow Push. Reverend Jackson is excited, Bishop. He thanks you for your support and for your continued presence each and every week in the broadcast, getting the information and sharing the information. Well, we have so much happening in the education arena. We want you to get focused and get connected as parents and as students. And it's not just elementary students, it's not just high school students, it's all of our children, whether they're going to kindergarten or to college. All parents, godparents, grandparents, foster parents, you need to be connected to information. And so today, I know you wonder why we say take the pledge. Well, I know you can't hear me because I'm not teaching anymore. I want you to hear from a young woman who is the former superintendent of schools for 2 school districts, one in Lockport, Illinois, a majority school district, and one in Harvey, Illinois, a minority school district. She has experience. She's a national recognized educator. She's a published author. And on September 26th, this young woman is doing something that no other African-American female has done. She is the keynote speaker for the 53rd annual conference hosted by the Association of School Administrators in Springfield, Illinois. I know what God can do. He can do anything but fail, and he has lifted us up in the midst of cuts to funding, cuts to education. He's lifted up a young woman who will fight for us and fight for our children. I want you to greet Dr. Sonia Whitaker as she comes and shares why you should take the pledge.
Thank you. I'll be very, very brief. I'd like to first of all thank Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'd like to thank Reverend Williams, and I would also like to thank Mr. Jonathan Jackson for the opportunity to stand behind this microphone. I want to start out real quickly by telling you the motivation behind the work. Yes, I have served as superintendent of schools for 2 districts, as a principal, as assistant principal, as a teacher, as a teacher's assistant. And with all that being said, the experience that changed me, which is relevant to the work that we do here, relevant to this pledge here, actually happened as a result of me being a principal. As a principal, I'll never forget a young teacher calling to my office, and she said, "Dr. Whitaker, there's a student who's kicking and screaming and yelling, and he's off task. Can I bring him to the office?" Now, I knew if she was calling down to my office that he had to have had a problem, because that was a teacher that never called down to the office. To make a long story short, he came and he sat. I let him know his mother was on the way, and I walked out, and he got up and he started talking to the secretary. I asked him to remain seated. At the end of the day, that secretary said something that changed me. She said, "Dr. Whitaker, do you want to know what that little boy said when you walked out of your office the second time?" I said, "Why, certainly." She said, "The minute that you walked out of your office, he got out of his desk, he looked me square in the eye, and he asked, 'Is there anybody in this school that can teach me how to read?'" And that moment changed me. You see, at that moment, it did not matter to me that people referred to me as doctor. The only thing that mattered to me is that there was a child on my watch who was dying to matter. And as far as I am concerned, he had made up in his mind that he was going to be good at being good, or he was going to be good at being bad, but he was going to be really, really, really good at something. Now, I want to let you in on a little secret. As a public school administrator, I've served in large districts and small, rich districts and large. district serving majority minority students, and district serving majority white. And guess what the little secret is? The children that are failing to make the type of academic gains that we know that they are capable of making fall in one of two different categories. They are either children who are born, or like I say now, if your mama and your daddy lose their job, slipped into a life of poverty, or children of color. So what do we do about that? We need to move beyond admiring the problems. We got to stop and pause. I call it have a yoga moment. Just get centered and focus and ask ourselves, how is that possible? Number one, we need adequate funding. While we were asleep 3 weeks ago, for the first time in the history of the state of Illinois, school districts missed general state aid payments. So while 80 and 90% of children of color are failing in our public schools, we're not getting the adequate funding needed to meet the needs of those students. We need to focus. We need more wraparound services. Preachers, we need you. I need you. Our children need you. Parents, we need you. Reverend Jackson stands up here and has someone talk about this pledge every week. We need to have parents take this pledge, take your child to school, meet your child's teacher, exchange phone numbers, turn off the TV, ask them what my child expects to know and be able to do, and what you're going to do when you find out they're not learning it. Thank you very much for your gift of time.
Well, we need great educators like Dr. Whitaker. We need committed educators like Dr. Whitaker, but we also need educators who fight for us every day, whether it's in Springfield or these state houses or in Congress. We need educators who also know how to lobby and fight for school funding. And so we have today another young woman who is an educator in her own right, but she spends most of her time downstate fighting to push through funding bills and public policies that will improve the quality of education, so that as our students are moving from one grade to the next, there are some standards that they have to meet, and the teachers are being compelled to teach them according to those standards, because now we have a significant number of college students who arrive at college unprepared, and many of them, more than 58%, drop out the first year based on funding, lack of funding, and based on unprepared for the transition from high school to college. I want you to greet warmly Ms. Stacy Davis Gates.
Good morning. My name is Stacy Davis Gates, and I am a staffer at the Chicago Teachers Union. I bring you greetings from Karen Lewis, our president. Thank you so much for having me here. This week we were met, in Illinois, we were met with the prospect of vouchers. That after 2 years of dealing with reforming an inequitable, last in the nation school funding formula, that not only did they work to give students in Chicago, students in Cairo, Illinois, students in Peoria more money to get wraparound services, more money to fund social workers, counselors, and smaller class size, but that the trade, the leverage that the governor of this state is asking for is to take that very money out of the school budgets of students on the south side and the west side of this city and give it to private, wealthy donors, to use as a tax shelter to fund private school education. That is a travesty. But what I want to tell you today is that that is not only a travesty, it is the way in which we are talking about education as if it is divorced and disconnected to the larger issues in our country right now. We have a sheriff that our president just pardoned, a sheriff who made a career out of terrorizing our immigrant communities. We have a governor in our state house that has promised to be the education governor and only given us vetoes for $15 minimum wage, has only given us vetoes for school funding, and in exchange he says we have to give public money to private hands. He has refused to raise revenues in order to fund our paltry school budgets. And here in Chicago, we have a mayor that agrees with both of them. We have a problem, and that problem aren't our school communities. That problem aren't our students. The problems that we're dealing with are problems of the lack of political leadership and will from the very people that will be asking us for our vote. We just heard that Illinois has automatic voter registration. And so when you are automatically getting registered to vote, as people are knocking on your doors asking for your vote, you have to be very, very clear about what our school communities need, what our communities need. In Chicago, we are under siege. We are dealing with unprecedented violence. On the south and west side of this city, we are dealing with Great Depression era levels of unemployment. And we are dealing with school budgets that have been cut so terribly that teachers are buying cleaning supplies to sweep their rooms, to wash their walls. That is a failure of leadership. So let me make this clear, because I'm a teacher and I'm a mother of public school students. And so I need your help as a teacher. I need your help as a mother. I need you to call your state representative. I need you to call your state senator. I need you to call your alderman, and I need to ask you to tell them we need revenue. We don't need excuses. And I don't need it to be the very people that are sitting here. I need it to be the people who are donating obscene amounts of money to political campaigns to protect their interests. So what you have to tell them is that rich people need to pay. They need to pay. What you have to tell them is that our communities need resources. Our fathers and our mothers need jobs. And you know what you can tell them? That unless you do that, we won't show up when you need us. Elections are about accountability, and we need accountability in this city. We are dealing with the mass exodus of black families from this city. So when you hear our mayor get up and talk about we need to close black high schools down, we need to close more schools on the south side and the west side of this city, what he is also telling you is that black families don't have affordable housing. What he's also telling you is that black men ages 18 to 24 are suffering from a 50% unemployment rate. That is what he's telling you. So we need to take this conversation about using public funds to fund private entities and say we need to use public funds to fund the public good. We have to expand the public sector. We have to expand the opportunity of our students to get a good education. This work that we are doing, this work that Reverend Jackson has trailblazed in this country, in this state, and in this city has to continue, and we need you. Please call them and demand revenue. Please call them and demand progressive revenue. Thank you.
Turn us up right now on your radio, turn us up on your television. We're going to hear now this dynamic young sister as she gives her oratorical presentation. Our founder, our president, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, is not with us. He is on the West Coast today. We know he's watching. Let's give him a great hand clap of praise. Make him hear you all the way in LA. We love you, Reverend. But to give her oratorical presentation, As I Grow Older by Langston Hughes, help me welcome young sister Carly Lewis, who this fall will be entering the 4th grade at Sutherland Elementary School in Chicago.
Good morning. Today, I'll be reciting for you As I Grew Older by Langston Hughes. It was a long time ago. I'd almost forgotten my dream, but it was there, then, in front of me, bright like a sun, my dream. And then the wall rose slowly, slowly, between me and my dream, rose until it touched the sky. The wall, shadow, I am black. I lie down in the shadow. No longer the light of my dream before me, above me, only the thick wall, only the shadow. My hands, my dark hands, break through the wall. Find my dream. Help me to shatter this darkness, to smash this night, to break this shadow, into 1,000 lights of sun, into 1,000 whirling dreams of sun. Thank you.
Give it up for Carly Lewis. We're going to hear from another dynamic sister with a powerful voice. If you were with us last week, you heard her sing and bless us, and you heard her story. We're trying to help her move to the next level in her life where God is calling her. The Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan. She has been accepted. She received a scholarship, but she's still a few $1,000s short, and we want to help her. She's having a fundraising concert on tomorrow afternoon, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., 815 West Oakwood Boulevard, 815 West Oakwood Boulevard, tomorrow afternoon, 5 to 8. She is no stranger here at Rainbow Push. Help me welcome young sister Maya Carter Ryan as she comes in her own way. After she blesses us, we will hear from our national spokesman, Jonathan Luther Jackson.
Everything must change, and nothing stays the same. But you know that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged.
Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone will change. No one stays the same. The young becomes the old, and mysteries do unfold, but that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Winter turns to spring. A wounded heart will heal, but never much too soon. Yes, everything will change. The young becomes the old. Ooh, yeah. You know mysteries do unfold, but that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure.
Except rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Except for the rain comes from the clouds, and music makes me cry.
Come on, put those hands together. Keep on, young man. Soldiers, keep on walking down. Whoa, whoa, keep on turning, 'cause it won't be too long. Oh, no, no, no. Powers keep on lying to me in my face, but my people, yeah, don't stop dying. Whoa, whoa, keep on turning. Oh, it won't be too long, long, long ago. Yeah. Oh, y'all help me out on this one. Oh, I'm so glad that you let me try it again. Last time I ever did, the whole world was in y'all. So glad that I know more than I knew then. Gonna keep on trying till I reach my high ground. Woo! Y'all say this with me, come on. Higher ground, higher ground, higher ground, higher ground, oh, higher ground. I got to keep on living. I got to keep on searching. I got to keep on running. Oh, higher ground. Oh, so glad that you let me try it again. Last time I ever did, the whole world will sing, y'all. So glad that I know more than I knew then. Gonna keep on trying till I reach my higher ground. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Brother Maurice Mahan. I'd like to also say a very special thank you to my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who is working on the West Coast this week on behalf of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Thank him for this privilege, this honor to stand in his rightful place here at the Rainbow Push headquarters. In brief, I would like to draw your attention to the book of Leviticus, 19th chapter, 33rd through the 31st verse. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. There seems to be a hot button issue this day as regards to immigration.
And we've seen the events of the most recent week regarding immigration. And I can see a pattern here that I would like to draw to your attention. Our friends here from Oregon, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and the Swedish Gospel Choir, give them a loving round of applause. Won't you please stand? Please stand right now. This comes down to those that are willing to fight for what's right. And our challenge isn't to fight those that are wrong. Our challenge today is to make those of us that believe in the right, are we going to show up and do something about it? We love the Bible, and my father oftentimes reminds me that the Bible is a history book, and that God is not dead and shall not be mocked. God is still alive, and we will see his face again. And the question becomes, what have you been doing during this time? We hear the antics of President Donald J. Trump, but you need to not look at the overlay and the underplay. The underplay is the man, Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. I know some people say, well, I'm not an immigrant. I was born of the descendants of those that were enslaved. And I would tell you, none of my parents were ever enslaved. They were God's children that fought a demonic system. We're not the descendants of slaves. You're the descendant of a king and a mighty God. You gotta believe it. What is Jefferson Beauregard Sessions doing? And let me tell you again, Jefferson Davis, the general of the Confederacy, that had as his vice president from South Carolina, from Georgia. What Mr. Taylor said, Alexander Stephens said in his speech about the Cornerstone speech. I want you to know how deep this racism is and how we have to fight this issue. Here is Jefferson Davis's vice president and what he said in 1861 when they engaged in secession and sedition and treason against our great country. He says, quote, "Our new government is founded upon exactly the idea. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone test upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is the natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth," close quote. So when we talk about the statues and those racists that are enshrined and exalted, they started going up in the 1920s and 30s after the Civil War to put fear in the hearts of God's children. We have to understand that those persons that came out in Charlottesville, that's not a long time ago. This are the descendants of those same demonic spirits that are fighting for something that should have been over 150 years ago. No one at that march met General Robert E. Lee. How could moving a stone, a monument, excite such fervor when someone would want to drive over young Heather Heyer? How could the President of the United States not call the mother and the father of young Heather Heyer? How could a president that had any humanity and decency see a woman, another woman abused and turn a blind eye and not try to go to the funeral service to set the tone for the nation for Heather Heyer? And please don't tell me that the business councils of America have more guts and more fortitude and morality than the evangelical community and not condemn Mr. Donald J. Trump. What is Mr. Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions doing? He has put up an immigration ban and is following through, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry about what Mr. Donald Trump isn't passing in legislation. Look at what he's enforcing in the law that's moving forward. From Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, more than 25,000 refugees who relocated here during the height of the Ebola virus have received letters as of May 21st, 2017, notifying them that they must leave the United States of America. 25,000 refugees from the countries of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea now must leave by the end of the year. How ironic. The same country that stripped the people off of their lands of Africa, brought them to America, is now kicking them out. What is Mr. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions doing under the leadership of Donald J. Trump? Haiti, 50,000 Haitians under temporary protection status have received their formal notification as of July 15th that they are to leave by January 2018. Another 250,000 from Central and South America are coming next. 50,000 Haitians under the temporary protection status have received their formal notification as of July 15th that they are to leave the United States of America by January 2018. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA, D-A-C-A, has had a rollback. 800,000 children that are called the Dreamers have been notified, children, that they have to go back to their countries, many of whom don't even speak the language, have no families there, don't know the culture because they were raised in America and not where their parents came from, are to leave by December 5th, 2018, under the leadership of Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Approximately 2,500 green card veterans. These are citizens of another country that have immigrated to the United States, that are serving in our armed services, whose life is on the line, who are willing to die on behalf of our freedoms. They receive a green card. 2,500 of them are serving in our military right now. Those cards have been rescinded and are being told that they are to leave the country and they will not be medically cared for. This is what racism and white supremacy and discrimination looks like in the United States of America. Well, let's not stop there. The Bible is a history book, and history's not over yet, and our God is not through with American history. Why would President Donald J. Trump give a presidential pardon to Sheriff Arpaio? I would like to say I am surprised. No, I'm saddened and sickened that he would give this man a pardon. They say, but he's 85 years of age. Well, if you're 85 years wrong, you ought to do your time. What did he do? He went and defied the court orders. He was in Arizona. Look at the map. You see 110 and 120 degrees in the Arizona desert. He made tent cities in Arizona. I was in Arizona about 3 years ago, rented a car, and I love candy, ladies and gentlemen. And I had Snickers, Milky Ways, and everything in my luggage, and left to go into a facility and came back out. Do you realize in 20 minutes, all of those candy bars had melted flat? You can crack an egg and put it on the ground in Arizona right now and fry it. If you're driving, you can think you see monkeys running across the street, and it's the heat waves that's coming up. He built a tent city where humans can't even stay. The federal judge said, what you're doing, Mr. Sheriff Arepo, is wrong, and it's illegal. He defied the courts for 17 months. That is why he got convicted. The great citizens in the state of Arizona and Maricopa County voted him out because they said, you're racist and you're wrong. And then what does President Donald J. Trump do? This man is to be sentenced in the upcoming months. He is now, in 218 days in his presidency, has given him a presidential pardon. He has, in fact, given a green light on this racial targeting, this racial supremacy. He is now fueling the fire. Well, in 1857, there was a law, the Dred Scott Law, which said that blacks had no rights that whites were bound to respect. 1857. In 1917, we saw the Immigration Act take place in the United States of America. And what did that say? That said Asians, Mexicans, Africans had quotas and had to be excluded. Oh, Lord. By 1957, our culture created, if I would say, as a church on wheels, a spiritual vehicle in the name of the Reverend Martin Luther King, after the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was created. That was the antidote to fight the racism that had been plaguing our nation. You see, in 1917, when they started the restrictions on Mexicans, on Asians, on African descendants, at the same time, we were reaching the height of the lynching in the United States of America. You know who was lynched and you know who did it, but no one was ever held accountable in the courts. We're going to tie it together right quick. I want you to see there's an ebb and a flow, and we're seeing a 100-year pattern evolve and open up and blossom before our very eyes. So doesn't that sound like the Asian and the Mexican and the African ban and the quota? Doesn't that sound like the Muslim travel ban? Doesn't that sound like the Haitians go home? Doesn't that sound like the Mexicans, I'm gonna build you a wall? Doesn't that sound like affirmative action is no longer necessary to be a remedy to break up racial discrimination and racism? After the ban, Reverend Martin Luther King started with a vehicle. He asked the churches to get involved, because he knew the scriptures in Leviticus 19:33 through 34. You were once strangers in Egypt. Who are you to look down on a child that comes from another country that speaks a foreign language? God bless that child also. The ban theologically is corrupt. 100 years later, since the immigration law of 1917, we're back at it again. When the Civil Rights Act in 1965, signed by President Johnson, went into effect, it lifted the quota on those that could come to the United States of America. What did that do? That said, in effect, the tired and the poor, the refugees around the world, you were welcome to be a part of the American body politic. Why is that significant today? Does it make any economic sense? Well, for those that are hardcore conservatives that only want to look at the numbers, look at the Fortune 500. 40% of those corporations on the Fortune 500 are either created or the descendants of immigrant children for our country. I'm gonna say that again slower. 40% of all of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 corporations in America are either immigrants or the children of immigrants. That's what you get when you open the doors and let the tired and the world's refugees find a home. You have your iPhone, but do you know that Steve Jobs was a child that was put up for adoption, whose father was a Syrian immigrant, whose mother was white and father was Syrian and couldn't stay in Wisconsin, so they had to ship him off to be adopted in Northern California. The people that were to receive the child wanted a girl. They didn't have all of the advanced technology, and then they realized it was a boy. So that family didn't want him. There were two lawyers, people that had pedigree. They gave that child to the Jobs family. A child that nobody wanted created the most valuable corporation in the world. It was only in 1967, ladies and gentlemen, where it was finally struck down by the Supreme Court that a white man and a black woman could marry in the state of Virginia, the Loving case in Virginia. It's not been that long. Reverend Martin Luther King would be 89 years of age. Do you ever look at those old file footage and wonder who were the people that were opposed to the Reverend Martin Luther King? Can you see Sheriff Arepo on the other side with a pitchfork and a tiki torchlight trying to run Reverend Martin Luther King out of town? In the book of Leviticus, we're reminded how to treat our immigrant friend, brother, and neighbor. Well, in closing, I want you to know there's danger in the air, but there's something that we can do about it. I'm not gonna stand here and curse the dark. I'm gonna let my light shine. I'm gonna call on people in the faith community to stand up to injustice. The evangelicals have been quiet in the face of this racism coming from the White House. When Mr. Trump pardons a sheriff who broke the law, in the words of the Reverend Martin Luther King, who engaged in interposition and nullification, he will do it again. We have to mount up and fight this evil trend that's gaining steam. I know there are going to be some people that say, you all are old-fashioned, and this is old school what you're doing, meeting every week at the Rainbow Push headquarters. Haven't you heard of blogging? Haven't you heard of Facebook? Haven't you heard of Snapchat? Haven't you heard of all of these technological tools? Well, I would tell my children and tell yours the same. There comes a time where little girls have to go to the back of the line. That sometimes the women and the mothers have to come forward. Sometimes the boys have to go to the back, and the men have to step forward. Before you can hurt my child, you've got to do it to me, because I'm going to protect them. We need some men and some women that can show some courage to rise up. No time for throwing bricks and hiding your hand. Show your face. Show your smiling teeth. Look some racists in the eyes and let them know that God is on our side.
Come on, put those hands together.
Y'all mind dancing with us real quick? Come on, come on. Give it. I need you on your feet real quick. We're just gonna have a little fun with it. Is that all right? Is that all right? Come on. Put your hands together. Everybody just clap your hands. Come on. Say it real loud. Say it like this. We say when I think about Jesus and all he's done for me. That's all we're doing like that. Come on. You gotta rock with us. Once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Y'all got it? You can't tell it like I can. So you can't tell it like I can. What the Lord has done. Yeah, so let me help y'all understand. The victory he won. Now I got a question for y'all. Gotta answer back. Yo, I say LX Dub. Do you love the Lord? Yo, the enemy defeated. Yo, now do you really mean it? Yo, rockin' with LX Dub. I need to see you help me bless the Lord. Y'all already on your feet. So get a little room. Y'all dance for your victory. Can y'all dance around a little bit? We turned it to a little party. Is that all right? Turn it to a... That's how we do. That's how we do in our culture. Let's try it one more time. When I think about Jesus, help us say, when I think about Jesus, all he's done for me. Once was lost, but now I was blind, but now I see. So you can't tell it like I can. What the Lord has done. Yeah. So let me help you understand. The victory he won. I can't get it up. Here. All right, I need to hear you back. Hey, I say LX Dub. Do you really love the Lord? Yo, the enemy defeated. Say, do y'all really mean it? Need to hear you say LX Dub. Do you really bless the Lord? Well, get up on your feet one more time. Make a room and then dance for your victory. Y'all, we got victory today. Hey, say dance for your victory. All right, now this is how we're gonna go out of it like this. Break it down a little bit, man. Listen here, now we're gonna do something real quick. Just put your hands together like this. I told you, just a little bit of a dance party, is that all right? All right, now I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna say why you praise the Lord like that. And all you're gonna say is, been too good, I can't hold back. Thank you. All you're gonna say is, been too good, can't hold back. Y'all got it? All right, we're gonna try it out. It sounds like this. So why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good, can't hold back. Why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good. Try one more time. I'll say why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good. Real loud. Why y'all praise the Lord like that? Been too good. Okay, cool. Y'all got it. So where the ladies at real quick? I need to see the ladies real quick. Come on, ladies. Come on, ladies. Me and this mic stand gonna get along. Come on, ladies. I need to hear you, ladies. There we go. Now we got it. There we go. I'm not as slow as I look. Yo. I say ladies. Yeah. Hey, where y'all at today? Right here. Come on. I say ladies. Yeah. Where y'all at? Right here. Little bit louder, ladies. Yeah. Where y'all at, huh? Right here. I need the women to go. Yeah. I got a question for you. I need to hear you say, why y'all praise the Lord like that? There you go. Why y'all praise the Lord like that? What's wrong with y'all praising God like that? Well, y'all praise the Lord like you're under attack. But get room to dance for your victory. Just dance for your victory. Come on, ladies. Y'all supposed to be moving. That's all right. The fellas gonna get it. Yo, I say fellas, where y'all at today? I say fellas, where y'all at today? Yo, fellas, where y'all at? Yeah? I say fellas, yo, I got a question for ya. Yo, I say why y'all praise the Lord like that? I say why y'all praise the Lord like that? What's wrong with y'all praising God like that? Listen, y'all praise the Lord like you're under attack. But wait a minute, dance for your victory. For your victory. right here. Yo, Shot City, where y'all at today? Chicago, where y'all at, huh? Rainbow Push Coalition, where y'all at today? Rainbow Push, huh? I got a question for you. Rainbow Push, why y'all praise the Lord like that? Can't hear you. Why y'all praise the Lord like that? I can't hear you. What's wrong with y'all praising God like that? Little louder, please. Y'all praise the Lord like you're under attack. But wait a minute. Dance for your victory. Come on, y'all might as well dance a little bit. Hey. Dance a little bit. Let's just dance for 1 second. Y'all can't get out there. Man, just play it one time. Y'all give it up to the band one time. Good dance, come on. All right, now I need y'all to help me out right here. Band, give me one. Band, give me one right there. Band, give me one right there. Band, give me one right there. Band, give me two right there. Band, give me two right there. Band, give me two right there. Band, give me two. Come on. Band, give me three right there. Oh, give me three. I need to hit. Give me three right there. Band, give me three right there. Oh, give me one. Y'all can shout it. Give me one right there. Hey, say, give me two right there.